Hey everyone, welcome to the show.
Great to be diving into this one.
Yeah, imagine wielding, absolute power, shaping the destiny of nations, only to have it all snatched away. It's quite something.
It really is. History has these figures that just loom so large.
Absolutely. And today you're joining us as we delve into the really tumultuous life of Henry V. He's a figure whose story Dan Jones recounts so vividly in his historical biography, Henry V, The Astonishing Triumph. Just keeps fascinating people.
It does. Jones really brings that period to life, doesn't he? The grit and the sheer unpredictability of it all.
Totally. And if you're keen to understand the man behind the legend, we've put a link to Jones's book on Amazon in the description. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's a great read.
So prepare to have your understanding of this, well, iconic king deepened as we explore the complexities of his reign. And hey, if you enjoy this deep dive, please hit that like button and subscribe for more.
Okay, so where do we start with Henry? Context is everything, right?
Exactly. Let's unpack this. Jones kicks off by plunging you right into that medieval world. Henry's born September 16th, 1386, Monmouth Castle. But it's not just about a royal birth.
No, it's about the family he's born into, the Lancastrians. His grandfather, John of Gaunt, arguably the most powerful nobleman in England.
Right. Super wealthy, a soldier, diplomat, even a patron of Chaucer, protector of Wycliffe.
Yeah.
A huge figure.
Absolutely huge. So young Henry, he inherits this incredible privilege, but also this immense weight of expectation and potential danger, too.
Yeah, because the political climate under Richard II, that was the backdrop, wasn't it? And it was anything but stable.
Not at all. Richard relied on his favorites, Burleigh, De Vere, and that really alienated a lot of the other nobles.
Jones paints him as, what was it, flittish, quarrelsome, petulant. Not exactly kingly stability.
Doesn't sound like it. And this created tension. And Henry's father, Bolingbroke, he's right in the thick of it.
And Bolingbroke's marriage to Mary de Boll, that was significant too, right? Bringing in those big earldoms, Hereford, Essex, Northampton.
Hugely significant. It boosted Lancastrian power, but probably made Richard II even more wary of them. And young Henry loses his mother quite early on.
Ah, yes, Mary de Bohun. Jones suggests that loss might have fostered his love for music, learning, books, God, gave him that serious side, maybe.
It's plausible. Then you have Bolingbroke getting involved with the appellants, challenging Richard directly.
That whole business, the Battle of Radcott Bridge, De Vere getting beaten and exiled.
That was a direct poke at the king's authority. And Richard II wasn't the forgiving type, apparently. He wanted revenge for that.
Which directly leads to Bolingbroke's problems later on. Richard sets up that duel between Bolingbroke and Mowbray, then exiles them both. Seems decisive.
It looked that way. But then, 1399, Richard makes the mistake of going off to Ireland.
Just as John of Gaunt dies. Perfect timing for Bolingbroke.
Too perfect, perhaps. He comes back, supposedly just to claim his inheritance.
Yeah, right. Nobody really bought that, did they?
Jones makes it clear it was seen as a power grab. And it worked. Richard's deposed, Bolingbroke becomes Henry IV.
Imagine being young Henry, maybe 12 or 13, watching your dad overthrow the king. Talk about upheaval.
Must have been formative, to say the least. And then, boom, suddenly he's showered with titles.
Oh, yeah, almost overnight. Prince of Wales, Duke of Cornwall, Earl of Chester, Duke of Lancaster, Duke of Aquitaine.
A lot.
It wasn't just for show, either. It was signaling the new dynasty, Henry's crucial role. He even had a sort of mini coronation.
Setting him up as the clear heir. And they didn't just wrap him in cotton wool. He gets thrown into the deep end pretty quick.
Right into the Welsh rebellion. Owain Glyndwr. That was a serious, long-running fight.
And Henry's right there. He even loses Conwy Castle at one point, then has to win it back. His dad's teaching him the ropes, apparently. How to defend castles.
A brutal but necessary apprenticeship, you could say, because Glyndwr wasn't just some minor rebel.
No, he was smart, used guerrilla tactics, tried to get alliances with Scotland, Ireland.
And you had those persistent rumors that Richard II was still alive somewhere. That just added fuel to the fire, constantly undermining Henry V's legitimacy. Made young Henry's job in Wales even harder, I bet.
Definitely. And then that instability boils over into the Percy Rebellion in 1403. Hotspur.
Fueled partly by those Richard II rumors again, leads straight to the Battle of Shrewsbury. Big one. Hotspur gets killed.
And Henry himself gets wounded. That famous head wound.
Oh, yeah, the arrow.
Yeah.
Or shard to the face. And that incredible surgery by John Bradmore, Jones really highlights how dicey that was.
Utterly perilous. Removing an arrowhead stuck in the bone next to the eye. Without modern medicine. Amazing he survived.
Makes you wonder how that brush with death affected him. Jones mentions him visiting Walsingham, the pilgrimage site, around then.
We can only speculate, of course, but
Mhm.
facing your own mortality like that, so young amid all that political chaos,
Yeah,
it must have left a mark, shaped his purpose, maybe.
could well have done. And even after Shrewsbury, the challenges didn't stop, did they? Henry V's reign was never totally secure.
Not really. More conspiracies kept popping up.
Hmm.
Fake Richard II's, the Mortimer claim to the throne. It was relentless.
And as Henry IV's health starts to fail, young Henry gets more involved in actual governing.
Yeah, they set up royal councils. Parliament even starts recognizing him as fit to govern. You can see the transition happening.
He's building his own reputation, especially with his military experience in Wales, even if Glyndŵr wasn't totally defeated yet.
And key enemies start dying off Northumberland, the younger Mortimer. That strengthens the Lancastrian hand.
But it also seems to create this tension between father and son. Jones describes it as almost having two kings.
You get that sense of Henry V being impatient, right?
What?
His father's ill, fading, and Henry's ready. He wants the crown.
And then March 1413, Henry V dies, and Henry V steps up immediately.
And quite smoothly, considering everything that had gone before. No major opposition to him taking the throne.
The coronation's April 9th, 1413. Apparently there was terrible weather, seen as an omen.
Chroniclers interpreted it both ways, apparently.
Yeah.
Austerity to come, but also that he'd stamp out vice. Medieval interpretations.
Right. And one of his first moves is interesting. He buries his father properly in Canterbury, near Becket's shrine, showing respect despite the past tensions.
And then adopts this policy of reconciliation, reaching out to old enemies, pardoning plotters.
Which makes you ask, was that genuine forgiveness or just smart politics, consolidating his power?
Probably a bit of both, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
He needed stability. Bringing former enemies into the fold is a good way to achieve that. But he also kept experienced people from his dad's government, like the Beauforts, alongside his own guys.
Shows a practical streak. But he faces domestic trouble pretty quickly with the Lollards, Oldcastle's rebellion in January 1414.
Yeah, the Lollards were religious dissenters. Henry hits back hard and fast against the uprising.
But Jones notes he also showed some mercy, right? Not just wholesale slaughter. Some were executed, but others imprisoned or pardoned later.
It highlights his commitment to orthodoxy, religious stability, and the law. Archbishop Arundel was pushing hard against the Lollards too, of course.
Henry seemed determined to bring order. That whole oysters parable Jones mentions, maybe more symbolic than literal, but illustrating his approach to fair justice.
Possibly. Trying to show he'd enforce the law for everyone. But you get the sense his mind is already turning elsewhere.
Across the channel, France.
Absolutely. Those old English claims to the French throne, they're clearly on his agenda. He even builds the Pleasance at Kenilworth. Jones suggests it was partly a place to think about the challenge of France.
And then comes the famous story, the tennis balls.
Ah, yes. The Dauphin supposedly sends him tennis balls, mocking his youth. Whether it actually happened exactly like that or not.
It served its purpose, didn't it? Henry's furious response. It galvanizes him, gives him perfect propaganda for war.
Exactly. It solidifies his determination. And then the preparations begin in earnest for 1415. Huge scale.
Massive undertaking. Ships, soldiers, supplies, money, all meticulously planned.
But even then, right on the verge of leaving, there's that internal threat. The Southampton plot.
Crikey, yeah. Cambridge, Scrope, Grey, conspiring against him. Scrope had been close to him, too.
Which makes Henry's reaction even more striking.
Right.
Ruthless. No hesitation, no leniency, executions right before they sail.
Sends a brutal message, doesn't it? Don't cross me. Sets the tone for the campaign.
It certainly does. So off they go to France. First stop, Harfleur.
And that wasn't easy. Tough landing, tough siege. Henry gives the ultimatum.
And then kicks most of the citizens out, repopulates it with English settlers. That's a statement of intent right there.
Yeah.
Long-term plans.
Definitely. Then comes the march towards Calais, and that turns into a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. The French have broken the bridges over the Somme, supplies are running low, disease is hitting the army, morale must have been plummeting.
And Henry imposes incredibly strict discipline. That story of hanging the soldier for stealing from a church.
Shows his iron will, but also the desperation, maybe. Keeping control in dire circumstances.
And all this leads up to October 25th, 1415, Agincourt.
The big one. The English are massively outnumbered, conditions are terrible, muddy field.
And yet, Henry's leadership, that famous speech, whatever the exact words were,
Clearly worked. The English longbowmen, the terrain, French mistakes.
yeah,
It leads to this absolutely stunning, unexpected victory.
astonishing, but controversial too. The killing of the prisoners.
Deeply troubling for us now. Jones puts it in context, though, the brutality of the time, the alleged French threats beforehand, the focus then being on the sheer number of French nobles killed. Still, it's a dark stain.
No doubt. But the victory itself was undeniable. His return to London, pure triumph.
Huge celebrations. Parliament's thrilled, grants him loads of money, recognizes his achievements. He's at the peak of his prestige.
But he doesn't just rest on his laurels, does he? He's thinking bigger picture. European politics, the papal schism, even a crusade.
Always thinking strategically. He visits St. Winfried's Well back in Wales in 1416, maybe reflecting, and then welcomes Emperor Sigismund to England, forging alliances.
Using his Agincourt fame diplomatically. Smart. And then he gears up for round 2 in France, 1417.
Yeah, but this time it's different. Not just a raid, but a full-scale conquest of Normandy.
Sieges of Caen, fillets, grinding, methodical work, even destroying abbeys in Caen during the fighting.
And crucially, he's not just conquering, he's administering. Setting up government, encouraging settlers, minting coins, claiming the French throne. This is annexation.
He's making it English territory. Meanwhile, things are still happening back home. Oldcastle finally gets caught and executed in 1417.
Heresy and treason ties up that loose end. But France itself is tearing itself apart, isn't it?
Oh, the Burgundian-Armagnac Civil War, utter chaos, which frankly helps Henry enormously.
No question. The Burgundians even take Paris, while Henry's busy besieging Rouen.
And that siege, 1418 into 1419, brutal. Jones describes the suffering of the people inside. Awful stuff.
But Henry doesn't let up. He's strategically relentless. Rouen's fall is massive, basically secures Normandy.
And sets the stage for the ultimate prize. The Treaty of Troyes in 1420.
Quite incredible, really. The treaty recognizes Henry as heir to the French throne, regent of France. And he marries Catherine of Valois, the French king's daughter.
He's basically won,
Yeah.
on paper anyway. King of England and soon to be King of France.
It seems like the absolute peak. But Jones raises the question, could it actually work, governing both kingdoms?
Yeah, the logistics alone. And the English Parliament wasn't entirely thrilled about a permanent union either, were they?
There were definitely underlying concerns, and then things start to go slightly wrong. Setbacks?
The defeat at Beaujeu in 1421, his brother Thomas gets killed there, a big blow.
Personal and strategic loss. Henry has to go back to France himself, even though his own health is starting to decline.
Still pushing on. The Siege of Meaux is one of his last campaigns. He's clearly unwell by this point.
But his mind is still active, isn't it? Still thinking big. He commissions that guy, Gilbert Lanoy, to scout the Holy Land for a future crusade.
Even while he's fading. Amazing ambition. But the illness wins in the end. August 31st, 1422, near Paris. He dies.
So young, really. Given everything he achieved, it's a remarkably short reign in the grand scheme of things.
And his legacy, it's complicated, isn't it?
Very. Immediately, his baby son, Henry VI, inherits this huge, unwieldy dual kingdom, which, spoiler alert, doesn't end well.
No. And views on Henry V himself have swung back and forth over the centuries. Paragon of kingship. Ruthless conqueror.
Shakespeare obviously gave us the heroic version, which is hugely influential. But the history, as Jones shows, is much more complex. Brilliance, piety, ruthlessness, ambition, all mixed together.
And you see the contrast starkly after his death. His brother Bedford tries to hold on to France, does pretty well for a while.
But ultimately, it all unravels. All those gains in France are lost within a generation. Makes you question the whole enterprise.
It really does. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Henry V's life and times. It's quite a story.
Absolutely fascinating.
So what was your favorite aha moment, or maybe the most surprising thing you learned today? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely share your thoughts. And please like and share this discussion if you found it interesting.
Okay, so we'll leave you with this final thought to mull over. Think about that balance between ambition and legacy.
Did Henry V's relentless drive for triumph, for conquest, ultimately serve his long-term goals for England and France? Or did it actually undermine them?
And what might have happened if he hadn't died so young? What could European history have looked like? Something to ponder. Thanks for listening.